Have you noticed that opening jars feels harder than it used to, even though you swear you're eating fine? Or that getting up from a chair now takes a moment of planning instead of happening automatically? Maybe your arms and legs look thinner, no matter what the scale says. And deep down, you catch yourself wondering whether this is just normal aging or something quietly slipping away every single morning you wake up. Because muscle loss doesn't usually announce itself. It doesn't happen suddenly. It happens silently, day by day, often right under your nose. And for many women, it starts long before they ever hear the word sarcopenia. It shows up first as fatigue that doesn't quite make sense, a little shakiness, small balance worries, a slower walking pace, or that uneasy feeling that your body just isn't responding the way it used to. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never say out loud. Muscle loss after 65 doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't care whether you consider yourself active or not. And it accelerates fastest when your mornings send the wrong signals to your body. That's the part that should make you pause. Because mornings are when your muscles quietly decide whether they're still needed or whether they can begin stepping out of the picture. Many women assume weakness is inevitable, that shrinking strength is simply the price of getting older. But what if that belief is exactly what allows the process to speed up? What if the real danger isn't aging itself, but starting each day in a way that tells your muscles, joints, and nerves to stay quiet, conserve energy, and slowly fade into the background? And if that's true, then the opposite is also true. That the first hour of your day may be either protecting your strength or quietly draining it, even if everything else you do feels healthy. Before we talk about food, movement, or anything else, there's one thing you need to understand. At this stage of life, the body listens most closely in the morning, and there's a short window after waking when it decides what to preserve and what to let go, which means the habits you repeat right then may be the difference between holding on to your independence or watching it slowly slip away without ever realizing why. If you've ever wondered why some women in their late 60s and 70s still stand tall, move with confidence, and seem stronger than their age suggests, while others feel like their bodies are quietly shrinking year by year, this is where the title of this video starts to make sense. Because when we say a simple morning habit, we're not talking about lifting heavy weights or doing anything extreme. We're talking about something far more subtle, but far more powerful. That's also why the words women over 65 matter so much here. Because this isn't generic advice. This is about bodies that have changed. Bodies that now respond differently, especially first thing in the morning. And when you read stops sarcopenia fast, that doesn't mean overnight miracles. It means stopping the daily signal that tells your muscles to weaken faster than they should. And you'll see why that distinction matters in just a moment. Because speed, in this case, isn't about days or weeks. It's about how quickly your body shifts direction once it finally receives the right message. That's why the thumbnail says 65 plus women still build muscle every morning. Not because muscle is built the way it was at 30, but because at this stage of life, muscle is preserved, protected, and gently reminded that it still has a role to play, and mornings are when that reminder works best. Most women never hear this explained, and that's exactly why so many quietly assume it's too late. But muscles don't disappear because of age alone. They disappear because the body stops receiving clear instructions early in the day. And here's the part that should really catch your attention. Everything we're about to talk about isn't one magic trick. It's a pattern, a sequence of small, doable morning choices that work together. And when those choices are combined the right way, they don't just slow muscle loss, they change the direction your strength is heading, which is exactly why this habit feels simple on the surface, but becomes powerful once you understand what's actually happening underneath. Protein-rich breakfast. This is where many mornings quietly go wrong, because for a lot of women, breakfast feels healthy, but it never actually protects muscle. And the unsettling part is that you can be eating every single morning and still losing strength underneath it all. As we age, muscles don't respond to protein the way they once did, which means the same light breakfast that worked years ago may no longer send a strong enough signal to keep muscle from breaking down, especially after a long overnight fast. When the body wakes up without enough usable protein, it looks for balance, and later in the day, it often fills that gap by pulling from muscle tissue instead. That's how strength fades quietly. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but in a way that's easy to miss until it starts affecting how you move, how confident you feel on your feet, or how steady your body feels during simple daily tasks. This is why mornings matter so much. Aging muscles are most responsive early in the day, but only if they receive a clear message that they're still needed. A protein-rich breakfast doesn't have to be heavy or complicated, but it does have to be intentional, arriving early enough to tell the body, protect this tissue, don't sacrifice it. Without that message, energy dips faster, balance feels less steady, and muscles become easier for the body to ignore. And here's the part most women never hear. Protein works best when the body isn't quietly fighting itself on the inside, which is why some women eat better, try harder, and still feel weaker over time. That's also why breakfast alone isn't the full answer, because there's another quiet factor that determines whether muscles actually use that protein or let it pass by unnoticed. And that's exactly what we need to talk about next. Omega-3 supplements. This is where many women start to feel frustrated, because even after improving breakfast and trying to do the right things, muscles still don't seem to respond the way they should. And the reason is often something happening quietly beneath the surface. As we age, the body tends to live in a low-grade state of inflammation, not the kind you feel as pain, but the kind that makes muscles resistant and less willing to listen, almost like static interfering with a signal. When that inflammation stays high, muscles don't use protein efficiently. They recover more slowly, and strength gains, or even simple strength preservation, become harder than they need to be. This is where omega-3s come in, not as a trendy supplement or a quick fix, but as a calming influence that helps aging muscles become receptive again. Omega-3s help quiet that internal resistance, reducing the noise so muscle tissue can respond more normally to food and movement, which is why some women notice that everything starts to feel easier once this missing piece is in place. Energy feels steadier, movement feels smoother, and everyday tasks don't drain confidence the way they once did. Without enough omega-3 support, the body can stay stuck in a breakdown mode, where muscle gets used up faster than it's rebuilt, even when eating feels adequate and habits seem right. And here's the part most women don't realize. This isn't about taking more and more supplements. It's about restoring balance so muscles stop fighting. The very signals meant to protect them. When inflammation is lower and communication improves, the body becomes more cooperative. Strength holds more easily, and effort finally feels like it's working with you, not against you. But even when inflammation is calmed and nutrition is improved, there's still one more message muscles need to receive, a physical reminder that they're still required. And that's what we need to talk about next. Resistance or strength movement. This is the moment many women hesitate because the word strength often brings up images of heavy weights, sore muscles, or doing something wrong. But the real risk isn't gentle movement. It's what happens when muscles are never given a reason to stay. As we age, the body becomes very efficient at letting go of what it believes is no longer needed, and muscles that aren't regularly asked to work begin to quietly step aside, even when nutrition and inflammation are already under control. Without some form of resistance, the nervous system slowly stops prioritizing muscle tissue, which is why strength fades even in women who walk every day and stay generally active, because walking keeps you moving. But resistance tells the body what it must keep. The key thing to understand is that resistance doesn't mean strain. It means intention. Simple movements that ask muscles to support your own body weight and remind the brain that these muscles are still essential for standing up, climbing stairs, and staying steady on your feet. One gentle but powerful example is simply standing up from a chair and sitting back down slowly a few times, using your legs as much as you comfortably can, because that single movement sends a very clear message to the body. I still need my thighs, my hips, and my balance today. When this kind of strength-based movement happens consistently, especially earlier in the day, it reinforces the idea that muscles are still part of daily life, and that message helps slow the quiet loss of strength so many women assume is inevitable. Skip this signal, and muscles become easier for the body to ignore. Include it, and muscles are given a reason to hold their ground. And just when most women think food, supplements, and movement are enough, there's another quiet piece that determines whether muscles actually respond. A missing signal that doesn't come from the kitchen or the muscles at all. And that's what we need to talk about next. Vitamin D and sunlight exposure. This is the piece many women completely overlook, not because it's unimportant, but because it feels almost too simple to matter. Yet, without it, muscles often ignore everything else you're doing. Even with better breakfasts, calmer inflammation, and gentle strength movement, muscles still need a specific signal to activate properly, and that signal is deeply connected to vitamin D and natural light. As we age, the body becomes far less efficient at making and using vitamin D, especially if most mornings begin indoors. And when that happens, muscles can struggle to contract, respond, and stay strong, even when nutrition looks right on paper. When vitamin D levels are low, muscles tend to feel weaker, balance feels less reliable, and fatigue shows up faster, not because you're doing something wrong, but because communication between the brain and the muscle isn't as clear or as quick as it should be. This is where sunlight becomes so important, because natural light early in the day helps the body activate vitamin D, and, just as importantly, sets the rhythm for how muscles, nerves, and energy systems function for the rest of the day. That rhythm influences how steady you feel, how quickly your body reacts, and how confident movement feels as the hours go on. Even something as simple as stepping outside in the morning, sitting near a sunny window, or taking a short, relaxed walk in daylight can provide this signal, especially when it becomes part of a routine. Without that light-based cue, muscles can feel disconnected, slower to respond, slower to recover, and easier for the body to quietly deprioritize. This is why some women notice they feel steadier and stronger during brighter months and more fragile during darker ones without ever knowing why. Vitamin D isn't just about bones. It helps muscles recognize when to contract, stabilize, and protect you from falls, which is why it plays such a quiet but powerful role in confidence and movement. And even when vitamin D and sunlight are finally supporting muscle function, there's still one more essential piece that determines whether muscles can perform smoothly throughout the day, something as basic as what's flowing through your body. And that's what we need to talk about next. Hydration with electrolytes. This is another piece many women assume they already have covered because drinking water feels like one of the simplest health habits there is. Yet for aging muscles, water alone often isn't enough to keep things working smoothly. As we get older, the body becomes less efficient at holding on to fluids and minerals, which means dehydration can creep in quietly, even when you're sipping throughout the day. When muscles don't have enough electrolytes, the minerals that help nerves fire and muscles contract, they don't just feel thirsty. They can feel weaker, tighter, less coordinated, and fatigue shows up faster than expected. This is why some women notice leg heaviness, muscle cramps, or a general sense of low energy, even though they're doing the right thing and drinking plenty of water. Electrolytes help water actually enter muscle cells instead of simply passing through, allowing muscles to contract, relax, and recover more efficiently. Without that balance, muscles can start to feel unreliable, especially later in the day when steadiness and reaction time matter most. For some women, even beginning the morning with water that contains a small amount of minerals or a lightly mineralized drink alongside breakfast can help muscles function more smoothly as the hours go on, not by forcing energy, but by supporting balance, coordination, and control. When this piece is missing, even well-fed and well-used muscles can feel uncooperative. When it's in place, movement often feels lighter, steadier, and more confident. And even when muscles are fueled, supported, and properly hydrated, there's still one quiet factor that can undo all of that progress if it stays unchecked. Something that affects the body from the inside out. And that's what we need to talk about next. Manage stress and cortisol. This is the factor many women underestimate because stress doesn't always feel dramatic or obvious. Yet, it quietly influences how the body uses everything else you're doing. Even when breakfast is improved, inflammation is calmed, muscles are used, sunlight is present, and hydration is better. Ongoing stress can still push the body into a protective mode that works against muscle preservation. As we age, the stress hormone cortisol tends to stay elevated longer, especially when mornings begin rushed, tense, or mentally heavy. And that constant signal tells the body one thing: conserve energy, don't build, don't repair, don't protect tissue. When cortisol remains high, muscle breakdown becomes easier, recovery slows, and strength feels harder to maintain even with consistent effort, which can quietly affect balance, confidence in movement, and how steady the body feels day to day. This is why some women notice they feel weaker during emotionally demanding periods, after poor sleep, or during times of ongoing worry without realizing stress is pulling the strings behind the scenes. Managing stress isn't about eliminating problems or forcing yourself to feel calm. It's about reducing the steady background tension that keeps the body on alert. Small moments of slowing down, especially earlier in the day when stress signals are amplified, can lower cortisol just enough for muscles to respond more normally to food, movement, sunlight, and hydration. When stress is left unchecked, the body stays in survival mode and muscles become expendable. When stress is managed, the body feels safer, holding on to strength and stability. And even when cortisol is finally calmer, there's still another gentle tool that helps signal safety to the nervous system and protect muscle. Something most women already have access to. Something quiet, simple, and surprisingly powerful. And that's what we need to talk about next. Meditation and breathing exercises. This is the part many women dismiss at first, because sitting still or focusing on the breath can feel too gentle to matter. Yet, for the nervous system, it's one of the clearest signals of safety the body can receive. Even when stress is reduced, muscles still rely on the nervous system to decide whether it's safe to hold on to strength or quietly let it go. And shallow breathing, constant mental tension, or moving through the day feeling rushed keeps that system slightly on edge. As we age, breathing often becomes quicker and more shallow without us realizing it. And that subtle shift keeps the body in a low-level alert state where muscles stay tight, recovery slows, and strength becomes harder to maintain, affecting how steady, confident, and coordinated movement feels. Slow, intentional breathing does the opposite. It tells the brain that the environment is safe, that there's no immediate threat, and that resources like muscle tissue don't need to be sacrificed. Even a few quiet minutes of steady breathing in the morning, or a short moment of sitting comfortably and letting the breath slow down naturally, can help reset this system before the day takes over. This isn't about emptying the mind or doing anything perfectly. It's about creating a pause where the body can downshift. When breathing is calmer, muscles release unnecessary tension, coordination improves, and movement feels more controlled instead of rushed or shaky. Over time, these small moments reinforce a powerful message. The body doesn't need to stay in survival mode. And when the body feels safer, muscles respond more easily to everything else you're doing to protect them. And even when the nervous system feels calmer and more balanced, muscles still rely on a strong physical framework. The joints, connective tissue, and support structures they attach to. And that's what we need to talk about next. Chicken feet or beef bone broth. This is the final piece many women never expect to matter, because it doesn't sound modern or trendy. Yet it quietly supports the very framework your muscles depend on every single day. Even when muscles are fed, calmed, hydrated, and well signaled, they still rely on strong connective tissue to function properly. And as we age, that support system naturally thins and weakens. Tendons, ligaments, and joint cushioning lose resilience over time, which is why movement can start to feel stiff, unstable, or hesitant, even when muscle strength itself hasn't completely disappeared. This is where traditional foods like bone broth, including sources such as chicken feet or beef bones, play a surprisingly important role because they provide the building blocks the body uses to support joints, connective tissue, and the structures muscles attach to. When that internal framework is supported, muscles can contract more smoothly. Joints move with less resistance, and everyday movements, standing up, walking, changing direction, feel more secure and confident. Without that support, muscles often have to work harder just to protect the joints, and that extra effort shows up as fatigue, hesitation, or a subtle fear of strain. Bone broth isn't about nostalgia or old-fashioned habits. It's about reinforcing the foundation that allows muscles to do their job without constantly compensating or guarding against discomfort. When the frame is stronger, movement feels steadier, recovery feels easier, and the body becomes more willing to hold on to strength instead of bracing against pain. And when this final piece is added to the morning habit you've been building, nutrition, calm, movement, light, hydration, and nervous system support. It completes the system, not by forcing the body to work harder, but by helping it feel supported, stable, and trustworthy from the inside out. If you take a step back and look at everything we've talked about, you'll notice something important. None of this was about pushing harder, doing more, or trying to fight your body. It was about understanding what your body actually needs at this stage of life and giving it the right signals in the right order, especially in the morning when it's listening most closely. A nourishing breakfast, calming inflammation, gentle strength, light, hydration, stress support, quiet breathing, and a stronger internal framework. Each piece on its own matters, but together, they create something far more powerful. A body that feels supported instead of strained. And the most reassuring part is this. You don't need to do everything perfectly, and you don't need to change everything at once. Even small, consistent shifts can start to change how your body responds over time. Strength doesn't disappear overnight, and it doesn't return overnight either. But it does respond to care, clarity, and consistency. If something in this video made you pause or think differently about your mornings, you might consider tapping the like button. It helps more women find information like this. And if you have a question or noticed one small change that's already made a difference for you, feel free to share it in the comments. You're not alone, and others may learn from your experience too. If you'd like to keep learning how to support your strength, balance, and confidence as the years go on, you can also subscribe so these conversations continue. In the next video, we'll take a closer look at another everyday habit that many women believe is helping, but may actually be working against their strength. And once you see it, you may never look at it the same way again.